Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a true publishing phenomenon. Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses series. You've likely seen it absolutely everywhere.
It's hard to miss. It sparks such intense conversations, such passionate fandoms.
For this deep dive, we've gathered, well, a really fascinating mix of sources. We've got the official Wiki info, tons of reader reviews, and I mean the full spectrum, from total adoration to pretty strong critique.
And some critical analyses, too.
Exactly. So it gives us a really comprehensive look at what makes this series tick, why it's so popular, and also, why it can be so polarizing at times.
And our mission for you today is really to unpack all these elements. We're going to look at the characters, the world building, the plot stuff.
Right.
All through the lens of these different perspectives. The idea is to help you find those, nuggets of insight and really understand the landscape of Prythian, which is rich, but also really debated.
Okay, so let's start with just the sheer scale. The ACOTAR phenomenon. Sarah J. Maas, she's huge, expected to be a best-selling author again in 2024. Millions and millions of copies sold.
It's massive. And the series itself translated into 38 languages. Plus, it connects to her wider Throne of Glass universe. It's a significant footprint.
Undeniable.
And what's really striking is how that commercial success feeds into and is fed by this incredibly vibrant fan community.
Oh, yeah.
Just look at the ACOTAR Wiki. It's open source, over 500 articles, 700 images. Get this, over 27,000 edits.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's all Creative Commons, so fans can share and adapt it freely. And the reading numbers are just, staggering. 183,000 people reading it right now on platforms like Goodreads.
And almost 300,000 reviews for the first book alone.
282,792 to be exact, including, apparently, one from Sarah J. Maas herself. It's more than just reading a book. It's this huge shared experience.
It absolutely is. And you cannot talk about that popularity without mentioning the book talk effect.
Definitely not.
That viral thing on social media, it just pours fuel on the fire, right?
Right.
Creates this massive eagerness for new books.
Especially, because her publishing schedule did slow down a bit after she had kids in 2018 and 2022. Understandably.
Of course. But it does create this huge pent-up demand from fans.
Which means expectations get really high.
Exactly. And those expectations were sky high for ACOTAR, partly because of how it was initially perceived, or maybe even marketed, as a Beauty and the Beast retelling.
Yes, the retelling debate.
So, for anyone unfamiliar, the basic setup is Fair, she's a mortal girl, she kills a fey creature, and as punishment, she's taken to the magical land of Prythian to live with a High Lord.
And this is where a lot of the arguments start. Is it really a retelling? Critics often say, quite strongly, that it's far from a retelling.
What do they mean by that exactly?
They argue it basically takes out all the important themes of Beauty and the Beast, leaving just the, bare bones of the plot. A girl goes to live with a beast.
Right. So it raises that question. What happens when something is framed as a retelling, but readers feel the core elements, the meaning, is missing or changed too much?
Precisely. And the specific complaints get quite detailed. Like Tamlin, the quote-unquote beast.
He's not actually ugly, is he?
No, he just has a mask stuck on his face because of a curse. It's not about inner versus outer beauty in the same way. And Fair's punishment?
Living in luxury.
Yeah, which some reviewers found, nonsensical, especially since she gets away from her pretty awful sisters, and a life of poverty doesn't quite track as a punishment for some.
So how does this stack up against other retellings? You mentioned comparisons being made.
Yeah, people often bring up other books. Cruel Beauty, for instance, gets cited as doing a better, more palpable tension, actual witty banter, really well-crafted supernatural elements. And compared to that, some felt the romance in ACOTAR between Fair and Tamlin just lacked real chemistry.
So those differences matter a lot for reader expectations, don't they? If you go in expecting Beauty and the Beast, you get this.
Exactly. If those core thematic elements, like sacrifice, looking beyond appearances, aren't felt strongly, it can lead to real disappointment. It feels like the promise of the retelling wasn't quite met.
Okay, let's shift gears to the characters.
Yeah.
Because, wow, this is where opinions really seem to just explode. A real whirlwind, as one reviewer put it. Let's start with Fair, the main character.
Fair, yeah. A lot of the discussion centers on her perceived inconsistencies.
How so?
Well, reviewers point out she seems to switch between hating and sympathizing with the Fae without any clear reason, just back and forth.
Which makes her hard to track, motivation-wise.
It can, yeah. And her painting skills, which are meant to be important,
Right, your artistic side.
often described as superficially presented, like it's mentioned, but maybe not fully woven into her actions or perspective in a meaningful way for some readers.
I also saw criticisms about her making illogical decisions. Like, she's supposed to be this capable hunter, but then does reckless things.
That comes up a lot. Trying to escape into fairyland while basically asleep, chasing an illusion of her dad, catching this supposedly super dangerous creature called a surreal with just a simple snare.
Ah.
It creates this disconnect for some readers. Is she resourceful or reckless? And then there's the criticism of her being complacent and unaware of Tamlin's manipulative behavior.
The Nehemiah syndrome comparison I saw mentioned.
Exactly. That idea of a character ignoring warning signs about someone close to them. And some reviewers found her mindset during assaults quite disturbing, questioning how trauma was portrayed.
There's even a rap song.
Oh, yeah, the satirical Farrah Darling rap. It kind of sums up a lot of these critiques humorously, even touches on her being illiterate initially, which is, quite the contrast to Belle.
Interesting. Okay, what about Tamlin then? The beast figure.
Tamlin's another source of division. Some readers found him stiff throughout the book.
Stiff how?
Yeah.
Like, emotionally unavailable.
Partly that, but also just inconsistent, veering between being violent or obsessive and then suddenly sweet and caring.
So, less complex, more just, poorly written, in their view.
That was the argument for some, yeah. But then you have others who actually found him pretty sweet in this first book.
Really?
Yeah, often with the disclaimer, like, oh, but he gets way worse in the next book. So acknowledging flaws, maybe, but liking him initially.
And the curse itself.
Oh, the curse gets picked apart, too. It's seen as so specific and kind of random. He has to fall for a mortal girl who killed one of his fae buddies in cold blood.
Right.
And she can't know it's a curse. It felt contrived to some. And his whole evil fae prince persona sometimes fell out of place, apparently.
Okay, now we have to talk about Rysand. Because if Tamlin was divisive, Rysand seems to split the entire fandom down the middle.
He really does. It's fascinating. The reactions are extreme.
Like what? Give us the range.
On one end, you have absolute hate. Descriptions like, old, greasy man, crusty and dusty and musty.
Oh, okay. Harsh.
Yeah. Accusations of him being abusive and weird, critiques about him constantly invading Fair's space, forcing her to, perform for him under the mountain.
But then, the other side.
Completely opposite. Talk of undeniable chemistry, a domineering yet charming demeanor. People saying their traitorous heart swooned for him. Some even felt he basically redeemed the book for them.
So it's this total love him or hate him situation. What do you think that tells us?
It's a great question. It really highlights how subjective attraction is, right? And what readers value in a romantic lead. Is it safety? Is it power? Is it mystery? Rysand hits certain notes very intensely, notes that some readers adore and others find deeply problematic.
Let's touch on Farrah's sisters. Nesta, the eldest. She seems pretty prickly.
Nesta definitely gets strong reactions. People note she became cold and vicious after the family lost their money. She resented her father, resorted to reckless spending, trying to force his hand. But there's also this acknowledgement that she had this fierce, almost paternal love towards Elaine, the other sister.
So some complexity there.
Some, yeah. And she did practical things, like hiring a mercenary for Fair. Plus, she was apparently immune to Tamlin's magical illusion, which suggests some inner steel, maybe.
But her overall arc?
For some, it falls short in book one. They wanted more development. And Elaine, the middle sister, is mostly just noted as showing promise.
Okay, moving slightly outside the immediate family. Lucien, Tamlin's friend.
Lucien's interesting. Some readers said he really grew on them.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and some even felt he had better chemistry with Fair than Tamlin did.
Interesting. Any criticisms?
The main one is that he sometimes feels like a plot device. He just conveniently reveals everything, spills all the deets with no struggle.
The exposition dump character.
Kinda, yeah. Which can make things feel a bit too easy for the plot sometimes. Lessens the tension.
Right. And Amarantha, the villain. How did she land?
Another divisive one. Big surprise, right?
Starting to see a pattern here.
Definitely. So Amarantha gets criticized for perpetuating female against female hate and for having motivations that felt surface level to some.
Like just evil for evil's sake.
Some described her that way, yeah. Cartoonish and annoying, more like a spoiled child than a villain.
Ouch. but others disagreed.
Totally. Others called her a compelling villain. They felt her backstory actually made her cruelty and the torture she inflicts somewhat reasonable in context.
So it depends on whether you bought into her motivations, basically.
Exactly. Did her power feel earned? Was her cruelty justified by her past or just there? Readers fell on both sides of that.
It's wild how even tiny details get picked up. You mentioned minor characters.
Oh, absolutely. Like Alice, the housekeeper character, sometimes called Mrs. Potts.
Right.
Some readers felt she was just filler, didn't add much. And then there was the name thing.
Oh, yeah, Isaac Hale.
Isaac Hale. Multiple reviewers actually pointed that name out as feeling unrealistic for a high fantasy world.
That is incredibly specific.
Isn't it? It just shows the level of detail some readers are engaging with or maybe getting pulled out by.
Okay, so that's the characters. Let's broaden out to the mechanics of the story itself. The plot, the world building, the actual writing. What about the plot structure?
Plot criticisms often revolved around weak foreshadowing. Some readers felt the story makes no sense at all until about 75% of the way through.
It's a long time to wait for things to click.
It is. And another common point was that things felt far too easy for fair. Like, crucial information, say, about the blight affecting the land, was just handed over with no struggle at all.
Which lowers the stakes, right?
It can, yeah. If the solutions feel too convenient, the danger doesn't feel as real.
And the riddle. Amarantha's big challenge at the end.
Yeah.
That seemed to really annoy people.
Oh, the riddle got a lot of flack. Called too simple, bad. The answer just being love.
Just love.
Just love. And many felt that just didn't fit this supposedly brutal villain who'd put Fair through literal torture. Why would she bet everything, her entire power, on such a basic riddle?
Yeah, it seems anticlimactic.
And then Fair gets it correctly at the last minute, leading to this perceived easy defeat. It kind of undermined the climax for those readers.
Okay, what about the world building? Prithian itself.
Again, mixed bag. Some felt it falls short. The Fae were seen as maybe too similar to the ones in Moss's other series, Throne of Glass.
Not distinct enough.
Or maybe not distinct enough from humans, even. With unrealistic characteristics, like immortality just kind of stated, not deeply explored, perhaps. Some called it lackluster and juvenile.
Harsh words.
Yeah.
But surely some people liked it.
Oh, absolutely. On the flip side, you had readers praising the religious system and creation story as interesting and unique.
Yeah.
And others found the world building rich and complex, really immersive. They loved the fascinating, complex politics between the Fae courts.
So it really depends on what you're looking for in world building, maybe. Deep lore versus atmosphere.
That seems likely. Different readers prioritize different things.
And finally, the writing style itself. This also seemed to generate some strong reactions.
Strong is putting it mildly sometimes. Criticisms included it being inconsistent and poorly done, having ineffective use of motifs. Some just flat out called it trash.
Oof. Any specifics?
Oh, yeah. Overuse of ellipses, though we're avoiding those here. M dash is apparently showing up every other sentence.
Really?
According to some reviews, yeah. And then there were the awkward phrases. Fair's bones barking.
Her bones barking.
Barking. Still trying to picture that one.
Yeah.
And the infamous, my bowels turn watery.
Oh, dear.
Which apparently appears twice.
Twice. Oh, my.
Yeah. So for some readers, these stylistic choices were really jarring, pulled them right out of the story.
Okay, so we've gone through this huge list of plot holes, character issues, writing critiques, and yet this series inspires such passion. It's fascinating. That reviewer who called it both terrible and amazing at the same time.
That quote really captures the paradox, doesn't it?
It does. So what is it? What's the magic ingredient that makes people love it so fiercely, despite the perceived flaws?
That is the million-dollar question. I think part of it has to be the sheer intensity, the passion of the romance storylines that Moss writes.
People get really invested.
Incredibly invested. There's this palpable eagerness to see how they would unfold, and maybe also a hope, that some issues might be resolved in future installments. People commit to the series, to its potential.
So the emotional connection trumps the technical stuff sometimes?
It seems that way for a lot of readers. The relationships, the feelings they evoke can outweigh structural weaknesses or stylistic quirks for them.
And that investment leads to rereading too, right? I saw mentions of that.
Definitely. People wanting to reread it to appreciate all the clues they missed the first time, or just to savor the excitement again.
Wow.
There was one reviewer who said they'd reread ACOTAR 6 times, right alongside heavy hitters like Harry Potter and Mistborn.
6 times. That's dedication.
It really speaks to a certain kind of addictive, immersive enjoyment, doesn't it? Maybe The journey, the feeling of being in Prithian, is just that compelling for some, regardless of the bumps along the road.
And the community finds ways to engage even with the bumps, like that drinking game you mentioned.
Ah, yes, the ACOTAR drinking game. For those needing a little encouragement to get through this series, it's kind of a perfect example of the fan community's unique, sometimes humorous way of embracing the whole experience, flaws and all.
It really ties back to that quote you found. Don't feel bad for one moment about doing what brings you joy.
Exactly. If it brings you joy, lean into it.
So there you have it. Our whirlwind tour. Our deep dive into A Court of Thorns and Roses. We've seen the whole spectrum, haven't we? From the deep frustrations to the absolute passionate devotion.
It leaves us with a really interesting question, I think. For you, our listener, to ponder. What does it actually mean for a story to be seen as critically flawed in so many ways, yet still be so wildly, incredibly beloved? And what does that paradox tell us about what really hooks a reader? About fantasy, about community, and just the deeply subjective power of storytelling itself.
A lot to think about there. We hope you found some aha moments in this deep dive and maybe see how exploring all these different perspectives can enrich how you think about the books, movies, and shows you love.